Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, team. That's all good. So let's go back to item number 11, which is our water future. And I'd like to welcome Andrew Chin. And just while Andrew's making his way up, Andrew, I just want to take a moment publicly to acknowledge you for this fantastic work you've done, and not just as the driver for this report, but I think Andrew's really, he's taken to heart our need to go out to all our communities, and the work that you've done with Marae, with Radio Waitea, with the partnership with Māori in getting feedback. I think, and I don't remember, Blair, if the IMSB's noted the huge number of Māori submissions that we've had. I think this has been the highest percentage of submissions from Māori of any piece of strategy that we've done. So I just want to acknowledge Andrew's leadership for this. It's been exemplary, and I think we are blessed to have someone of your capability, Andrew. So it's just needed to do that. Over to you now.
Thank you very much. I haven't got a presentation, so I thought I'd just introduce some of the key themes that we've got for the analysis and feedback. So today we're presenting the feedback on the Our Water Future discussion document and seeking your endorsement of the framework that was proposed in the feedback, with some amendments that we've made to it based on that public feedback. And firstly, there was a very high level of public submissions, over 7,400, and very high submissions from Māori. And I'd probably have to acknowledge the efforts of our communications and engagement team here, in particular Caitlin Baldfeld, Sandy Mills, Wendy Phillip and Joe Davidson. We spent about $85,000, coupled the engagement for the Our Water Future discussion document with the annual budget. Took about 8 weeks to go through the engagement, but the connections that they'd made with the people at Radio Waitea, the rangatahi groups, really helped sort of raise the profile of this, and I think gave us very good value for money. At the start of the process, we would have been happy with about sort of 2,000 to 3,000 submissions, so it certainly exceeded our expectations when we started. Some of the strongest themes that sort of came through, about 30% of submitters were very keen to see us promote rainwater harvesting and water tanks in some way through the main strategy. There was very strong themes around a call to action, more DUI, less hui, please, and what is it that council is going to deliver on the ground for us. And so we've captured a lot of that type of feedback in sort of paragraphs 40 onwards that should be included in the eventual strategy based on this feedback. When it comes to the framework, and I think it's quite relevant to the conversations that we've had today, we outline the values and the big issues. And interestingly, there was a really strong support for ecosystems, recreational values, water use, but its resilience value was the lowest. And likewise, when you look at the issues, cleaning up our waters, meeting future water needs, growth in right places, adaptation was the lowest in the broader public mind. And when we dived into the submissions, it was still quite noticeable that a lot of people had concern about climate change, but we think it was around our language, and our initial explanation of resilience was a little bit too much jargon, I felt. Didn't really explain why, and that's probably one of the main changes that we've made to the framework, is explaining we value resilience because we value being prepared for extreme events such as flooding and drought, and are more able to recover from them quickly, rather than talking about resilient catchments and coastlines and communities. It was a bit too abstract. We also think that compared to the other values, like water quality is here and now, and some of the climate change and resilience issues are in the future, so people can discount them bit more easily. We need you to fix up the things that are happening here and now. And so that's why perhaps those two values and the issue got pushed towards the back. However, we feel very strongly, just like you do with the climate change announcement today, that they should be retained within the strategy. They're very important. Just because they're not as high as the others, we feel strongly that they should be kept and given that prominence. So there's a very detailed report in Appendix B that dives into what the submission said from different sector groups and so forth, and likewise what the individual iwi have said as well. And we've made available the complete submission pack on the hub for you if you'd like to dive in and to those submitters that are from your particular ward or particular area. So I'm happy if you'd like to ask me questions now.
So got a question and a suggestion. So I've read the strategy and the principles and the like. I guess what particularly concerns me is implementation and action. And one of the things that would be helpful, and it would be easy enough to edit, is to have some examples of how this particular strategy would apply in a given circumstance. And that could be fictional, for example, without being geographically specific. Okay? And I'm thinking especially of instances where it's a bit of a wicked problem, and it might involve, for example, water care, it might involve another entity, it could be RFA, it could include, say, park space. Okay?
Absolutely. I think that's certainly something that we've been thinking about as we develop the strategy proper. I should mention that the plan is for another round of engagement on the formal strategy around next April, after the main strategy document is developed between now and December. But I very much take your point as an example of how we turn strategy into action. And one of the examples that has been quite visible for people is looking at SafeSwim as a tool that provides our data and information and modelling in such a digestible way for the public, and the action that came through the water quality targeted rate as a result of the public outrage that's come from having that information available. And now we see the implementation through major infrastructure projects to address it.
So just further to that, for example, there might be an example or some examples of what a household was doing across water, and that would be at a very micro level. Then you can go up to another level and look at conceivably how we might be managing water, say from a stormwater drain to irrigate a park, and so on. Then we might look at another level that might involve water care, who might be treating some water, but then actually reusing it for some purpose, and there could be a range of purposes around that, so that we're actually being a little bit more definitive around how it works.
I completely agree. They're wonderful examples.
Circulate to local boards the feedback from submitters in their areas. Can we get a copy for us too, please?
Absolutely. Those local board memos are being prepared. It's pretty much a covering memo with the information you've got, but a summary based on the feedback for their local board areas. So we'll certainly make those available on the hub.
Councillors and members, I just want you to note, we've just changed, it was note our water future, we're just adopting our water future as the framework to prepare the strategy. If we just noted it, it wouldn't give the framework any substance in this, so it follows exactly the same process that we've been using. So that's, I've moved, seconded, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you, and thank you again.